Well, thank you for having me. My name is Paul Bibby, Managing Director and CEO of Akora Resources. Akora Resources is iron ore exploration company with several tenements across Madagascar. Our flagship project, is the image behind me, is at Bekisopa in south-central Madagascar. Significant outcropping iron ore along the 6-kilometre strike. And over the last 12 to 18 months, we've been drilling there some 6,000 metres and have confirmed that the iron formation continues from the outcrop to some 200 plus metres below surface at very good grades.
Paul, nice to meet you. Thank you very much for the introduction. It's good to have you on. So Bekisopa, the flagship project, can you just tell me really briefly how you came to this project and a bit about the background on its discovery?
Sure. So my colleague, John Maiden, is the CFO. He acquired this project in middle of 2014 from Klein Mining, who had done some work on it. And from their airborne surveys and geophysical work, believed there was quite a strong iron ore body there from that magnetic intensity work that they did. The project was first worked by the French in around about 1960, be the BRGM, and they walked the ground, they dug trenches manually, and they drilled 19 very shallow holes to about an average of 19, 20 metres. And it showed that there was quite a strong iron ore footprint along that 6-kilometre strike. We then listed the company in December of 2020 and spent last year drilling along the 6-kilometre strike, some 63 holes, around 6,200 metres of drilling, very high strike rate. I think only 2 holes we drilled didn't intersect the iron because they were a bit too east, of where we believe the ore body is. So they all have hit iron ore. At surface, we're seeing high-grade iron ore grading sort of 62 to 68%, which is DSO, direct ship ore, just requires mining, crushing, screening to ship the product. Then at depth, we're seeing variations in grade depending on whether it's north, central or south. Only slight, but there's little differences there because there's been some folding and the like. But that material is DSO potential as well. But what we've found is that a 2 millimetre crush, just conventional mining, screening, crushing to 2 millimetres, the iron ore from a grade of, say, 25% upgrades to better than benchmark, 62% iron ore, fines product. So it's been very, very exciting. Yeah.
And that's interesting. And so when I've had a look at a few of the cross sections, it looks as if it's kind of it's almost flat line, but almost like a kind of a very gentle syncline.
Yes.
What's the depth down to the middle of that syncline?
Yes. Okay. So that's in the south where you're seeing those, and those cross sections are over 650 metres wide from east to west, and like you said, they're at surface at the east and surface at the west, so very good for open pit mining. Dipping down around probably 150 to 200 metres deep. Yeah. Okay.
So that's absolutely the beautiful kind of an open pit profile. So that's exactly what you want. But and with those grades of around 25 to 35% in that section, or sometimes 40%, is that all magnetite?
It is all magnetite. In the south, there looks to be 1 or 2 bands of hematite mixed in there, but they're only maybe a 10-metre band. For some reason, there's a hematite coming from the weathered surface zone and going to depth. We haven't got all the assays in for those yet. They'll be coming in the next few weeks. But it looks like there is some hematite present in the southern zone. But the north and central is predominantly magnetite. Yes.
It's the beautiful thing about iron ore exploration is that you can just see it, can't you? I mean, it's finding it is the easy part, so to speak. Particularly when it's been discovered, or kind of it was indicated or outlined, identified at first by in the 1960s. Do you have a kind of an orientation map that you could pull up just so I can just kind of get a feel for things?
Yeah. So this is the island of Madagascar, quite a substantial island. Our main project is Bekisopa, as I said, in south central Madagascar, not far from National Highway 7, which heads to the west to the port of Toliara. Now, that's some 250 kilometres away. We also have some projects on the east coast, which were the first projects the company had, Tra Marina and Ambody Lapa. Again, both very interesting iron ore projects. And with the beauty of Tra Marina is it's only 16 kilometres from the coast. We're focusing on Bekisopa because from the outcropping, which you can see in that photograph in the top left-hand corner, the outcrop there is grading 66.7% iron. So that's rocks like this one here that I just picked up off the ground, grading 60%.
Hang on, let's see that properly. I'm just going to knock this slide off.
Okay.
You want to show me that rock again?
Yeah. So this is one of the rocks I've picked up. So this grades 67% iron. You know, you could possibly weld this, I would think. I should probably try that. But it's just beautiful stuff. And to make that a product, all it needs is, you know, picking up, you know, shovel truck, crushing it to 35 millimetres, and you have a lump iron ore product, grading 67%, which today is has a price of $170 a tonne, with a lump premium of some $15 or $20. So I think quite you know, good prices, but also an attractive margin for a, you know, open pit, no stripping ratio operation. Yeah.
Just a quick question. You talk about Highway 7 going from Bekisopa to Toliara. Yeah. Is that a dirt road or is it a tar road?
No, it's that's a bitumen road. It's several lane bitumen road, but we're about 80 kilometres from that road. So we have to have an all-weather road to get to that road if we're going to transport by truck to the port.
Yeah. And then it would go to the port of Toliara. I've actually been there.
Okay.
What is it? So is it a 7 metre depth or a 14 metre depth? I can't quite remember. It was a while back.
Look, initially, if we had an operation that was, say, doing 2 or 3 million tonnes per annum of product as we were building up the scale of the operation, we would look to barge the product out to the waiting vessels. So, you know, that's the depth issue isn't I don't believe a problem, but yeah, we just do barging like they do in many countries around the world. They do it for coal in Indonesia and iron ore elsewhere. So it's a fairly, you know, conventional, common practice. Yeah.
What's Base going to be doing with Toliara?
In terms of where they're at with their operation and the port facilities?
Yeah, the export plan.
Yeah, look, I don't know, unfortunately, Merlin. I should. One of the complications with COVID has been that we can't get into WA and meet with the people who are in charge of Base Resources. So we're waiting for that opportunity to meet face to face and have a chat. So yeah, and learn more about what they're doing, but also learn from them about how to progress projects in Madagascar.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting country. It's an interesting place.
Yeah.
So do you want to go back to that orientation slide? That'd be
sure. So,
but just to be clear, your focus is on Bekisopa at the moment, and that's where you put in the 6,200 meters of drilling. Yes. And what's the plan now for 2022? Okay,
so we have had a very extensive drilling campaign at Bekisopa over the last 12 plus months. The assay data is coming in. I've recently reported the central zone and the northern zone assay results in the past two weeks. And now we're completing the southern zone's drilling results. There's some 38 drill holes there. So quite a bit of assay work and test work to go through. And that will be completed well and truly by the end of February. And the objective is then to report on the maiden JORC resource for Bekisopa in middle of March this year. And then following that, we will continue to look at the exploration geological information, the metallurgical processing aspects of the Bekisopa project, and start then doing studies in terms of logistics and mining practices and, you know, potential operational studies leading towards the feasibility study.
So in terms of the strike length, remind me of the strike length. Did you say it was
6 kilometres? So 6 kilometres north-south. And from the drilling we've done so far, east-west strike widths of 250 plus metres to well over 650 metres probably more like 1 kilometre in the south.
What's your line spacing on that drilling so far? I mean, have you done them every 200 meters, every 100 meters? What have you been able to do in your...
Both of those. So north-south, in the north and central, we were pretty much on a 200-metre spacing north-south, and east-west we were going either 50 or 100 metres. So fairly close grid spacing, because we knew the ore body from the magnetic work that we did was dipping to the west. So that grid of the 200 metres north-south, 100 metres east-west worked very well. The drill spacing in the south is generally at 150 metres north-south and 50 to 100 metres east-west. So some of the grids in the south will have 6 or 7 holes east-west going across.
And what's the variability like? You know, you comfortable with that grid spacing? 50 to 100 meters. Is that showing you that there's good continuity of these lenses and kind of not too much folding and thickness variation? Yeah.
Now, look, it's been dramatically may not be the right word. Pleasingly predictable. So we started by defining the eastern edge. So that was the shallow east edge of the iron formation on the east, and then we just stepped it out going to the west at 50 and 100 metre intervals. And after about 3 holes, you could almost predict where the 4th hole was going to intercept the iron formation and where it was going to come out. And we're seeing true thicknesses of between 50 and 100 metres along that southern structure, but also in the north. The iron formation in the north, 70 to 105 metres, as we announced in the last announcement on the northern zone last week. We've got cross sections there which are quite substantial.
And is the northern is it tabular dipping to the west?
Very much, yeah. That's a good way to, yeah.
So you've just stopped drilling because of a kind of a depth constraint. You thought, right, we'll drill this down as far as we want to go, and
well, would love to keep drilling. The first reason we've stopped is that we had a plan to do 4,000 metres, and early on with the success we we increased that to 5,000 metres for this year, which is what we've done. We did about 5,000, maybe 100 or 200 metres this year, and 1,000 metres the previous year. I mean 2021 and 2020. Sorry. The reason we stopped drilling in mid-November of last year is there's a rainy season in Madagascar. They've already had one cyclone. So from about December through to the end of March is the wet season. And there's one reasonable sized river to cross, which once the rain comes and the waters flow into that river, it's not able to be readily crossed or safely crossed between, say, December and March. So that was the main reason for stopping. Yeah,
and it provides a nice kind of a nice place to have a kind of a data break and put out your first resource.
Exactly.
You're also a bit tight on cash, aren't you, at the moment? You did a good capital raise at the start. You've spent the money, proven the resource, and you don't want to be going crazy now.
No, exactly, and that's exactly right. We brought forward work from this year into last year, and that decision was made to define the best JORC resource we possibly could in the time frame with the minimum expenditure. So we didn't have to go and mobilise and demobilise a camp and drilling contractors and all of those things, where the mobilisation is important, but you don't want to do it twice, because if you're going to get away with doing it once, which is what we've done. Now, this year is all about studies, and yes, the bank account at the end of December was $1,045,000, which is sufficient for us to get through and just do the studies this year as we've planned. But as the JORC resource is, presented, we will consider what is the best way to take the company forward. Should we just do some study work, or should we get back into the field and do some more drilling, or whatever? So we've got a couple of different budgets. We've got a budget that just gets us through and do the fundamental sort of initial study phase. We've also got a bigger budget, which gets us doing a range of work, including more extensive studies, logistics, community, processing, mining and the like. Also some marketing work, but also then going back and doing more field work at both Bekisopa and Tratra Marina.
And okay, lots of questions.
Yes, no problem.
Is your project supported from Toliara? Is that where your kind of operating base is?
No, our operating base is in Antananarivo. So we've got an office in Antananarivo where we have an administration person and our geologists. And then I've put together a team of external consultants, which we use to do this work. A very experienced South African geologist who's a certified geologist for a number of the engineering companies in Madagascar. He has a large team of geologists that go out in the field under his supervision. And they're also out of Antananarivo. The drilling contractor is a Canadian, and he's from the east coast of Madagascar, between Antananarivo and the Tomasina, I think it is over there, on the east coast. So we've got most of our people come out of Antananarivo or the nearby towns and travel south. Yeah.
How do you get there? Do you drive? Is it kind of is it a drive down, or do you fly?
It's a drive down. No, we drive down. It's 850 kilometres, I think it is from memory. So it's a drive. It's a very interesting drive going through the countryside of Madagascar. You know, Madagascar is a poor country. Very enthusiastic people wanting to improve their standard of living, which is nice to see. But yeah, look, we drive down. We have taken a helicopter once, I think, when we've had some people wanting to come and have a look, but only a short time frame to get to site and have a look. But yeah, the main way is to drive.
And so the river that is tricky to pass is north of Bekisopa.
It's probably northeast. Yeah, so you come off the national highway onto a dirt road, and you basically head west. And that river is, I don't know, 40 kilometres in, and about 40 or 50 kilometres from the Bekisopa site. During the dry season, the trucks just drive through. It's a trickle of water, not an issue. Cars, four-wheel drives can drive through. There's a lack of infrastructure in that region, but the bridge would be a very simple all-weather bridge that could be built to enable access all year round.
Yeah, great. Let's just park Tratra Marina for a while. Yes. But the thing about iron ore is always about logistics. So it kind of makes me think that a good next step would be to even just a kind of a simple scoping study, just kind of to run some what ifs, yes. What might be's.
No, very true.
You must be thinking already about that. Kind of what options would you think of? What options are you looking to study? What are you thinking? What are you thinking already is an exit route for this? Yes.
Look, if it wasn't for COVID and people were able to travel more readily, we would have completed the logistics study this year, so that at the time of releasing the JORC resource, we could answer that question, because it's an obvious one, as you've asked today. And we're looking from the outcropping material and from the weathered zone that we're seeing from the drilling, that there's potentially material in those two areas to provide high-grade lump and fines at the production rate of 2 to 3 million tonnes per annum for 8 to 10 years, which would be a very low capital cost way to start up an operation at Bekisopa. Then you look to use trucks to go from Bekisopa to the port, an all-weathered road of about 80 kilometres to the national highway, and then along the national highway to Toliara. And as I said, port facility and barge onto the ships. That's the concept we have. There's also another town a little further north of Toliara where access could be equally as good, if not better, and we'd be looking at that. So we've got to do the logistics work in terms of flying the ground, but also bringing in experts to come and do some studies and to look at that.
Oh, well, in some ways, that's the critical thing with iron ore is, what can you yes. get up and running quickly for low capex, because exactly. You don't want to be thinking railways and pipelines.
Oh, no. Now, look, the JORC resource that we'll define in March, in the prospectus back in December of 2020, we said that the drilling program that we had planned, 4,000 metres of drilling, we would get 100 million tonnes. We were pretty confident we could do that. We've added to that, we've got 6,000 metres of drilling now. So we're confident of exceeding well and truly the 100 million tonnes of ore in the JORC resource. A number probably more like 150 or a little better. And the drilling grid has only been over 30% of that 6 kilometre strike. So theoretically, if you just do the maths, and we are seeing that the iron formation is very predictable and continuous, and there's potentially 500 million tonnes of iron ore, I believe, along that 6 kilometre strike to a depth of 150, 200 metres, which is what we've only drilled so far. And we're seeing those formations dipping to the west, 70 to 100 metres wide and continuing at depth. So potentially they could still be there at 500 metres, which would add significantly to the future, size of the resource.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for us, the way is to get to the mining of the outcrop, mining of the high-grade weathered zone where we're seeing 64 to 68% iron and lump and fines product initially. And then as we get into other areas, and depending on how the iron and steel industry goes with the green steel initiatives that are starting now in earnest, we can readily upgrade the 25, 30% iron ores that we're seeing there, the 40%, to a very high grade DRI product grading 69, 70% iron using magnetic separation. The critical thing there will be grain size. I mean, if you can keep it coarse, so if you can keep it as a fines product, rather than having to go down the grinding curve.
Down the grinding curve and into the world of pain that is blaine indices and pellet plants. That'll be kind of essential. So a lot will come out from the size fraction analysis that you do.
So on that, Merlin, my background's a metallurgist. So I've worked with the geologists in my past in iron ore operations. So I'm a metallurgist. So I look at what the geologist finds and how that can be processed most efficiently and economically. So we've already undertaken some magnetic separation trials at crushing sizes of 3 to 1 millimetres. And what we found is that the 2 millimetres seems to be optimal for liberating the iron ore and getting better than 62% benchmark grade at different locations north to south along that 6 kilometre strike. So like you said, we can get a fines product that's 65% iron quite readily with magnetic separation at 2 millimetre crush, which is what you're indicating needs to happen. And if we go finer than that, again, using magnetic separation and going to 75 or 100 microns, or maybe even coarser, because we haven't done the work yet, we're seeing 69 and 70% iron grades and extremely low impurities.
So, I noticed that you've got low phos, which is great. I didn't look at the sulfur numbers. What are they like?
Okay, can I share another graph with you?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to sharing. Okay, there's the magnetic anomaly. Maybe we just spend half a minute on that. So that's the magnetic anomaly north to south, okay, over the 6 kilometre strike. I've marked up in the centre there the central zone and the 12 holes that were reported on in middle of January. Last week we did the northern zone, which is the holes there above the central zone. And then we've got the very large grid in the south where, the cross sections there are some sort of 650 to 700 metres wide and the same in north-south, which is good. So, but a very strong, continuous magnetic anomaly. And the drilling that we've done to date, both shallow and deep drilling, has confirmed a very consistent iron formation and very solid grades. Okay. If you look at that image on the left, you can see the true width is around 70 metres and dipping to the west, and some very good grades near surface of 60+% and the like.
Is that base of oxidation, so just going back, is that base of oxidation that you've mapped there, is that relatively consistent across north to south across the whole deposit?
Yes. So if you look at it on the left-hand image, on where the word oxidation is, that's probably, I would say, 20 metres thick. But then in the middle near drill hole 41, it's probably only 10 or 12 metres thick. So it does vary, probably from about 4 or 6 metres to 20 metres. But yeah, it's a very consistent weathered zone, and we're seeing some very high grades, like I said, 64 to 68%, particularly in the south and also in the north.
So I'm just going to hark back on that. So if you're looking at your kind of your starter resource, is it all going to be above that base of oxidation?
Well, it'll be the outcrop, which is well and truly above it. It's at surface. And then you'll go into the weathered zone, which is the base of oxidation that we have started to plot here, and will be confirmed when the resource geologist does their work. But if you look at drill core at a number of these different holes, you can see where it goes from weathered into what would you call it? Fresh, I guess, material, unweathered material. It's a very clear demarcation,
hopefully there's a nice colour change as well, going from the red
very dramatic colour change, yeah.
So the grey-blue.
Yeah, so the weathered zone is a beautiful deep red, as you'd expect for iron ore that's been weathered. And then below it, it becomes, black to greys, where the iron ore is. Yeah. So if I jump ahead, they're the WIMS results. So that's low intensity magnetic separation results. Average head grades there of 35%, upgraded to 66.1% at a 2 millimetre crush. So that's the sort of product that we can make from surface to depths of 40 metres plus, just on this one hole where we did some trials. And it upgraded this to well and truly above benchmark grade, and actually into the higher grade 65%, which, like I mentioned earlier, today was trading at $170 a tonne.
That's nice.
And the left-hand image is, the surface material there. Like I said, that weathered zone, that's potentially DSO. It's grading 60%, and then it gets black, and then it gets versions of grey as the grade decreases in that iron band, in that iron formation.
So that composite. So just to clarify, that composite photograph, bottom left there, is your composite 6 there, BEKDO4 in the middle of the picture, 31 to 38. So it's 7 meters, 24%, and it upgraded to 62%. Nice. And that's at 2 mil.
No, that's a 2 millimetre crush. I haven't done anywhere near enough mineralogy. Again, that's sort of the processing metallurgical work we'll do more of this year to understand the actual iron minerals that are present and the sizing. But from what we've done so far, and we've done quite a few of these low intensity magnetic separation trials, 2 millimetre crush on a variation of grades is upgrading to 60. An average over that 40 metres of 66%, which is high-grade iron ore fines.
Great, lovely. Thank you very much.
So the next slide is the Davis tube test work, where we actually used assay pulps at 75 microns, which is a relatively coarse grind size for doing Davis tube tests. People normally do them at 15, 25, 40 microns. We found just using assay pulps where 80% of the material was at 62 microns, 80% was passing 62 microns, upgraded to 70% iron. So 70% iron at 0.31 silica and 0.003 phos and 003 sulfur in the bottom right-hand corner is a terrific product. And from the limited reading that I've done and discussions I've had with people about the future of green steel, this is a perfect product for that, for the direct reduced iron feed grades. So for the benefit of any layperson who's watching this, could you explain what a Davis tube test is? Okay, so Davis tube is a glass tube where you put in 20, 40 grams of sample, and you rock that backwards and forwards between magnets. The magnetic material goes to the magnets and is recovered. The other material is washed away. And what you then go and do is you capture that magnetic material and have it assayed and determine the grade. Yeah.
And why do iron ore companies do regularly? Why do they regularly do Davis tube test work? What does it tell you?
It tells you the ultimate product that you could get from your ore resource. So the reason we've done the Davis tube test is only to define what the true ultimate high-grade product would be from Bekisopa. We're not saying at the moment we are going to have to grind to 75 microns to produce a product, because we know we've got the outcrop in the weathered zone, which is high-grade lump and fines, and we've got at a 2 millimetre crush a very good product, high-grade iron ore, 65%. But you do the Davis tube to define what the ultimate grade is that you could get from your ore body. Yeah, and 70% iron is a tremendous number. Pure magnetite, and you probably could correct me as a geologist, is like 72.4 or something like that. So there's not much room for impurities when you're at 70% iron already.
Great. So just the bottom composite, I'm interested in the kind of what happens the further down you get, as well as what's happening up at the top. But that bottom composite was down at 38 meters. Have you done test work on material deeper than that?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. So I've selected a hole in the north that was in the centre of the northern grid, centre of the central grid, and the centre of the south grid, with the view that that would be what you saw there in terms of the mineral processing results would reflect, north, south, east, and west around that. So in the northern zone, which we reported last week, we had a hole that went to 70 metres, and we've done wet limbs to, I think, about 40 metres from memory, and we did some Davis tube tests to 70 metres. And the assay results, the correlation between the assay results, wet limbs at a 2 millimetre crush, and then even the Davis tube at 75 microns, the correlation is very high. So we're confident that the grades at 70 metres or deeper, even at 200 metres, that where we see 40 and 50% iron, will upgrade very readily at 2 millimetre crush.
And have you done any kind of petrography, or have you got kind of a feel for that 2 mil kind of threshold? I mean, is it visual?
Yes, we've done from the 2020 drilling. So last year, 2021, we did some mineralogy, some petrography on a few of the different product samples to see what the liberation was like and what minerals were there. It was very straightforward. The iron is being liberated at that 1.5 to 2 millimeters, even coarser size. So we've done a limited amount, and we need to do some more so that we can be confident at. So we never had drilled to 250 meters down hole until this sort of October, November. So we need to do some work on that as well, just to see how consistent it is from surface to depth. Yeah, but from what I'm seeing of the drill core images, the magnetic susceptibility, which you do at logging in the field, the correlation between the magnetic susceptibility in the field, the photographs of the drill core like we saw earlier, assays and everything else, the correlation is very high, and the reproducibility of getting high-grade product at a 2 millimetre crush, and certainly at 75 microns, is just, it's very pleasing. It's very straightforward, very predictable so far.
Cool. Thank you very much. I feel as if I've kind of learned so much more about the project and the company. Yeah. I think rather than let's talk about Trattamarina maybe the next time. I think this flagship. Let's not confuse the message. Let's just focus on Bekisopa. Is there anything else that you feel we haven't covered that you'd like to kind of communicate?
Look, there's one slide that I think draws the knowledge that we've gained over the last 18 months all together and starts to paint the picture of what the future will be for the company in terms of production profile. So if I could maybe just show that one last slide and just talk to that for a minute or so. Is that all right?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. So these are images showing you on the left the head grades in the ground. The top image is iron. So head grades of 25 to 60% head grade in the ground. After wet limbs is 62 to 68%. Then after Davis tube test at a 75 micron grind size plus 70% iron. And similarly, the bottom two images, the silica reducing from an average, let's say, of about 22 to 25% in the ground, which is not uncommon, to 3.2% at a 2 millimetre crush. That is better than specification. And then a David Tube's test at 75 microns, 0.3 silica and 0.24 alumina. So very, very good grades, as you can see. But this is the picture that maybe we could finish on. What we're predicting is potentially 5 products out of Madagascar, out of Bekisopa at Madagascar. The first one, as we've mentioned several times, is the outcropping material, the high-grade DSO, lump and fines. We're seeing both hematite and magnetite. Average grade of this outcrop is 66, 67%. And then we've got the weathered zone, the very high-grade weathered surface zone we spoke about. Again, we see that becoming a high-grade plus 65% lump and fines product. So those 2 products there, we see being the initial phase of a mining operation at Bekisopa for the first 8 to 10 years at a 3 million tonne per annum operating size, and trucking the lump and fines to the port of Toliara, like you mentioned. Yep. Then, as we expose the deeper material or the lower grade near surface weathered material, grades of 51 to 60% or 42 to 50%, crushing that to 2 millimetres, you get a very high grade fines or a benchmark grade 62% iron fines. And they're the products that you can see. Very clean, meeting all the specifications for silica and alumina and phosphorus and the like. So that's how we now bring together the information. And then the 5th product is from the lower grade, deeper material, grading from maybe 15 or 20% up to 30%, crushing that to 75 or 100 microns and getting a 70%, 69, 70% DRI feed product. So that's how we see the story coming together.
Thank you very much. That 5th project, that 5th product, I think that's far dated. We can talk about that once you've paid the capital back from the first few products.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Look, from the low operating and capital cost startup doing DSO, producing a 65% lump and fines, you get the extra margin for the lump as well. You'll earn more than enough, I believe, to then invest in the right processing equipment to produce those future products. Yeah.
Paul, thank you very much. It's been fascinating. I look forward to seeing the JORC resource in March, April, whenever it comes out, and talking to you later during the year.
No, thank you very much for your time. And look, if there are yourself or other investors who like to learn more about Akora, please be in touch. We're keen to get our story out there. We think this is quite a promising future iron ore project.